The topic we chose is GMO use in farming. Well, what are GMOs anyway? GMOs stand for genetically modified organism, and it's any type of organism. It can be a plant, animal, bacteria, etc., whose genetic material has been manipulated through genetic engineering. It's a laboratory process of taking genes from one species and inserting them into another in an attempt to obtain a desired trait or characteristic. The key steps involved in genetic engineering is to first identify that trait of interest, then second, isolate that trait, insert that trait into the organism, then propagate or breed that organism. Well, when did this topic become an issue and when was it discovered? The concept of genetically modified organisms has received a large amount of attention in recent years. However, humans have been genetically modifying organisms for over 30,000 years. Clearly, our ancestors had no scientific laboratories capable of directly manipulating DNA that long ago. So how did they do it? While our ancestors had no concept of genetics, they were still able to influence the DNA of other organisms by a process called selective breeding or artificial selection. These terms, coined by Charles Darwin, describe the process of choosing the organisms with the most desired traits and mating them with the intention of combining and propagating these traits through their offspring. Repeated use of this practice over many generations can result in dramatic genetic changes to a species. While artificial selection is not what we typically consider GMO technology today, it is still the precursor to the modern process and the earliest example of our species influencing genetics. However, true genetically engineered organisms started in 1972. Herbert Boyer and Stanley Cohen developed a technique that allowed them to cut pieces of DNA and then attach the pieces to the other organism, which was the beginning of biotechnology. Using this method, they transferred a gene that encodes antibiotic resistance from one strain of bacteria into another, bestowing antibiotic resistance upon the recipients. GMOs are mainly in agriculture to produce crops that are resistant to pesticides and herbicides to kill unwanted pests, have certain capabilities such as frost resistance, drought resistance, increased color, or size.
So, GMOs in agriculture have been around for over 10,000 years, and in the past, farmers would take the best crops and keep them going, and get rid of the weaker crops. Maybe that was because of the weather or just had a bad season, but they would just get rid of it for the time being, and try it again the next season. Now GMOs are being used so much more because people have actually found out ways to change the individual genes in crops. So this makes it so there is no off season or the weather doesn't matter. Crops can be produced all year round in whatever kind of condition if the right genes are changed. The importance of GMOs to human life is that basically farmers are able to produce so much more crops because before they couldn't produce a lot of crops all year round, and now they can. Also, they profit so much more because of this, and their income goes way up. Using GMOs also decreases the farmer's exposure to chemicals such as herbicides, and it also decreases the amount of weeds that they have to deal with. There's another positive influence on human health, which is there's a decrease in insecticides. Also, it's said that GMOs can increase the nutritional value of fruits and vegetables, which obviously is better for us. Basically, the importance of GMOs is that they have to exist to be able to keep up with our growing population every day, because a lot of crops can't grow naturally all year round, but GMOs are making that possible and growing enough food.
How are genetic engineered crops affecting the environment? Well, effects on the environment depend on the intensity of cultivation over time and space, the inputs applied, including water, fertilizer, and pesticides, and the management of inputs, crop residue, and tillage. Crops do not damage the environment simply because they are genetically modified. Some farming practices, such as the overuse of herbicides, resulting in the excessive eradication of wild plants from farmland, have been shown to harm the environment. These problems are similar for non-genetic modified and genetic modified crops. The use of genetically engineered crops has altered farmers' agronomic practices such as tillage, herbicides, and insecticides. These alterations have implications for environmental sustainability, both on and off the farm. GMOs are one of the several plant breeding technologies that help farmers grow more food using less input like pesticides and land. This increased yield means farmers kept acres of land from agricultural production, decreasing potential deforestation and harm to ecosystems. Without GMO seeds, we would need more land for agriculture. GMOs also help improve air quality. GMO crops allow farmers to till their fields less often, using less tractor fuel and releasing less trapped CO2, thus reducing carbon emissions. GMOs also help reduce water pollution. Less soil till also means better moisture retention in the soil and reduced runoff, preventing water from clogging by soil, crop residue, and chemicals. How have humans caused this topic to become a larger issue? There have been many controversies regarding genetically engineered technology, with the majority relating to genetic engineered food and agriculture. While some critics object to the use of this technology based on religious or philosophical basis, most critics object on the basis of environmental or health concerns. One specific concern is the possibility for GMOs to negatively affect human health. This could result from differences in nutritional content, allergic response, or undesired side effects such as toxicity, organ damage, or gene transfer. There's an ongoing debate whether GMOs are bad for you, they'll give you cancer, while some say GMOs can end world hunger, stop climate change, and that they're completely harmless. There are numerous amounts of unscientific, unresearched claims about genetic modified crops. Despite the growing use of genetically modified food over the past 20 years, most Americans say they know little about GMO foods and believe anything from phony reports and articles. An example of concerns over genetically engineered crops would be a protest against an evil corporation called Monsanto, a company that produces a variety of genetically modified seeds. Monsanto has been vocally criticized by environmental activists who question the safety of GMOs and pesticides, by academics who say the company has unfairly swayed science, and by farmers who claim to have been hurt by the company's tight control of the genetic modified seed supply. Its aggressive marketing of GMOs, lobbying against GMO labeling, its veto of independent studies on its products, and its controversial protection of intellectual property rights have made Monsanto a popular target for anti-GMO campaigns and sustainable agriculture activists. In the US, no regulations mandate that foods derived from GMOs are labeled. This is because these foods must meet the same safety standards that apply to all FDA-regulated products, and there should be no need for additional regulation. People are protesting because they want the right to decide what they put in their bodies. Without labeling, they don't know what they're eating.
So some people are really against the use of GMOs because they're not natural, and they also have a lot of other possible negative effects. So what those people can do is buy 100% organic foods. They can buy food labeled non-GMO. They can even grow their own food in their backyard or a local garden. More farmers have been starting to move to 100% organic farming or non-GMO farming. This is because they want to stop crossbreeding and the possible negative effects of GMOs, which could be an increased risk of cancer, could increase the risk of different allergies, and also crossbreeding can be really dangerous. Due to the use of so many GMOs, there have been super weeds and super pests, which are super hard to get rid of. This has also led to the increase of the use of herbicides, which can infect the plants that we're eating. But since now more farmers are moving away from GMOs, the environment is slowly healing because the pests and the weeds are going away. There are not many actions that are currently happening to stop the use of GMOs because many people are for them, because there also are some positive effects of them. A lot of people think that it's not possible to stop the use of all GMOs. But some actions, small actions that are being taken to stop the use of GMOs would be, there's a lot of different petitions going around that people can sign to ban the use of GMOs in crops. And there's also a campaign to mandate the labeling of all foods that have GMOs in them, and also a campaign to certify that foods that are labeled non-GMO definitely are 100% free of all GMOs.
Còn this process is artificial selection. For example of artificial selection, like Asian farmer have grown and developed the grass turn into corn, and some kind of fruit that develop into a watermelon, and they can roll the white cow to become a farm cow. For the present, instead of selectively breeding for tail, scientists can go directly to the DNA responsible, snip it out, and translate it into newly developing plant and animal. If these snippets come from the same basis, the scientists call the new organism genetic. If these snippets come from the completely different plant or animal, the scientists call the new organism transgenic. The example for the genesis is the apple with the grape. That's ugly apple, and when the scientists take the DNA of it and combine it to the smooth and resistant to grapes, and then the production is the enchanted hybrid grape resistant apple. That's smoothly apple. On the other hand, making a transgenic animal that they combine the human gene with the cow gene and make a transgenic cow, and they reduce the milk from genetic cow containing human gene. And finally, the results. The GMO can be designed to be more resistant to pests